The shadows may fade, but the stories won't. Hit subscribe now, and step into the next mystery with me. At exactly noon, when the sun stood blazing overhead, a man walked into the village and his shadow moved in the opposite direction. The villagers froze. Children stopped mid-play. Merchants let fruit tumble from their baskets, and even the stray dogs grew silent. Shadows were supposed to follow the laws of light, stretching behind their owners or curling faintly beneath their feet. But this stranger's shadow slithered forward, reaching toward people like a living thing. The man himself was unremarkable at first glance, tall, cloaked, his face half hidden under a hood. He carried no weapon, no staff, nothing that might frighten the villagers, yet fear clung to him as if stitched into his very presence. Wherever his shadow touched, the air seemed colder, and whispers rippled through the crowd. "Who is he?" someone murmured. "Not human," another answered. Old Mira, the village seer, dropped the clay jug in her hands. Her wrinkled face went pale as ash. "I have seen him before," she whispered, voice trembling. "Not the man, the shadow." The stranger paused in the center of the square. He did not speak, but the shadow did. It rose slightly, flickering like smoke, forming shapes, letters that seared themselves into the ground. "I seek the gate." Gasps spread like wildfire. The gate was a legend, an ancient doorway said to exist between worlds, hidden where light and darkness met. Few believed it real, and those who did claimed it was cursed. Mira clutched her beads, muttering prayers under her breath. The man finally raised his head. His eyes were gray, empty yet piercing. "The gate must be opened," he said quietly, though his voice carried like thunder across the square, "and none of you can stop it." Then, as quickly as he had appeared, he walked on, his shadow dragging itself like a second creature, hungrier and far more alive than he was. The villagers scattered, terrified to cross his path. But one boy, no older than 15, did not move. His name was Arin, an orphan who had always been drawn to the strange and unexplainable. As he watched the impossible shadow trail away, his heart pounded not with fear, but with a pull he could not resist. For reasons he could not name, Arin stepped forward, following the man into the sunlit road where shadows were never meant to live. And in that instant, his destiny entwined with something older than the world itself. That night the village did not sleep. Torches burned at every doorway, candles flickered in windows, and yet shadows gathered thicker than ever before. Arin tossed restlessly in his small bed. His mind replayed the image of the stranger's shadow twisting against the sun. Alive and deliberate. Who was he? Why did the seer look as though she had seen death itself? By dawn the answer began to take shape. The morning sun rose, golden and fierce, but the light felt dimmer than usual. The villagers muttered nervously, pointing at their own shadows. They were shorter, thinner, fading in places as if eaten away. "What is happening?" a farmer cried. "My shadow, it's shrinking," a woman screamed, staring in horror as her outline crumbled at the edges like smoke in the wind. Old Mira hobbled to the square, her voice rasping with fear. "The gate is stirring. That man has awoken it. Light itself is bleeding from this world." The crowd erupted in panic. Some swore to leave the village at once. Others begged Mira for protection, but she could only shake her head. No one runs from a shadow. It follows. Arin, standing at the edge, felt a strange heat at the back of his neck. Turning, he saw it, his own shadow twitching unnaturally, straining as if it longed to detach. A cold dread filled his chest. And then he saw him again. The cloaked man stood just beyond the square, half hidden by sunlight. His shadow, longer than before, stretched across the cobblestones like a black river, reaching toward doorsteps and curling around frightened villagers. They recoiled, but Arin found himself stepping closer. "Why are you doing this?" Arin demanded, though his voice trembled. The man's eyes flicked to him. For a moment the coldness softened, replaced by something else, recognition. "Because the gate must open," he said. "Without it, the world will rot in silence." "What gate?" Arin asked. The man's shadow rippled like water, and from it rose images, ruins, towers swallowed by mist, a door of obsidian standing in a field of white fire. "The gate between realms," he said. "Your village is but the first to feel its hunger." Before Arin could respond, the shadow writhed violently. A villager screamed as her own. Shadow was torn from her feet and dragged toward the cloaked man's. She collapsed to the ground, pale, lifeless, her outline stolen. The crowd erupted in terror. But the man simply turned and walked away. his shadow carrying the stolen silhouettes behind him like chained prisoners. Arin's fists clenched. He didn't know why, but he knew one thing. If no one stopped this man, there would be no village left by sunrise. And, perhaps, no world at all. The night after the shadows were stolen, silence fell heavy over the village. No dogs barked, no crickets sang, not even the wind dared to stir. It was as though light itself had abandoned the land. Arin couldn't bear it. He slipped out of his home and made his way to Mira's hut. Her door creaked open before he knocked, as if she had been waiting. "You saw it, didn't you?" She rasped, her voice dry like parchment. "The gate's messenger." "Messenger?" Arin asked. "That man is no messenger. He's a thief, stealing people's shadows." Mira's gaze was grim. She motioned for him to follow inside. The hut smelled of herbs and old smoke, and in the center lay a wooden chest bound with iron clasps. With trembling hands, Mira opened it. Inside was a scroll wrapped in dark cloth. "This map has been hidden for centuries," she whispered. It was forbidden even to speak of it. But now, her eyes burned into his. "You must see." She unrolled the scroll across the table. At first glance, it looked like nothing more than a mess of black ink and faint golden lines. But then Arin realized the black marks weren't ink at all. They were shadows, shifting faintly across the parchment as though alive. The golden lines pulsed like veins of sunlight, cutting across the darkness. "The map of Equinox," Mira said. "It shows where light and shadow meet, the only place the gate can exist. Long ago, a war was fought to keep it closed. Too many died, so the knowledge was buried." Arin's throat tightened. "And the man?" "He is the shadow bearer," Mira said. "Chosen to open the gate when the world tilts too far into light. Balance must always return." Arin shook his head. "Balance? People are dying. Their shadows are being ripped away." Mira looked at him with sorrow. "The gate does not care for lives, only for order." Before Arin could speak, the candlelight in the hut flickered violently. A chill swept the room. From the floor, Mira's own shadow began to rise, stretching, writhing, reaching toward the forbidden map. "No!" Mira cried, clutching at it, but the shadow tore free like a beast unchained. Her body fell limp to the ground. The scroll snapped shut by itself, sealing the shifting darkness inside. Arin stumbled back, horror gripping him. Mira was gone, her body a hollow shell without the outline that had given it life. But her last word echoed in his mind, Equinox. If he was to stop the shadow bearer, he had to find that place. The map, cursed or not, was now his only guide. Arin rolled it tight, tucked it under his arm, and fled into the night, knowing the shadows were already hunting him. The road beyond the village was drenched in moonlight, silver and sharp as a blade. Arin walked quickly, clutching the forbidden map under his cloak. Every step felt watched. Every rustle of grass a whisper too close. For hours he followed the map's glowing lines through forests and hills. The golden markings shimmered faintly, tugging him forward. But the black shadow ink twisted too, curling like claws, pointing to unseen dangers. By dawn, Arin reached an old stone bridge spanning a dry riverbed. The air was unnaturally cold, the silence heavy. He paused and then saw them. Shadows, not the simple outlines cast by sun or moon, but things that moved with purpose. They slithered along the ground, rising in jagged shapes. Wolves with hollow eyes, serpents with fanged mouths, faceless figures taller than men. Each one detached from nothing, born out of air itself. Arin's breath caught. He gripped the map tighter, his heart hammering. The shadow circled the bridge, cutting off every path but forward. One stepped closer, its head tilting unnaturally. "Child of light," it hissed, voice like broken glass. "You carry what is forbidden." Arin forced himself not to step back. "I'm going to stop him," he said, though his voice shook. "The shadow bearer won't open the gate." The shadow laughed, a sound like dry leaves burning. "Fool, the gate does not open, it awakens. And it is you who walks it nearer." Before he could ask what that meant, the shadows lunged. Arin ran, sprinting across the bridge. Black forms clawed at his heels, their touch burning with ice. He stumbled, barely holding the map, when suddenly, light flared from the scroll. Golden rays burst outward, slashing through the nearest shadows. They shrieked, collapsing into smoke. The others recoiled, hissing in pain. For a moment, Arin stood shielded, the map glowing like a small sun in his hands. But the light dimmed quickly, as if exhausted. The shadows gathered again, more furious than before. Then another voice cut through the chaos. "Enough!" The shadows froze. At the far end of the bridge stood the cloaked man. The shadow bearer. His eyes gleamed like storms, and his impossible shadow stretched across the bridge to where Arin stood trembling. "Boy," the shadow bearer said, his tone calm yet commanding, "you cannot fight what is already written. The gate calls. You will follow whether you wish it or not." Arin's fists clenched. "I'll never follow you." The shadow bearer's lips curved into something between pity and amusement. "You already are." At his words, Arin felt the shadows stir inside his own skin, like something dark had awakened in him, waiting to be unleashed. The map's golden veins guided Arin for days, pulling him ever closer to a place where the world itself felt unsettled. The forest grew silent. The rivers slowed as though time hesitated, and even the sun dimmed at noon. His own shadow twitched restlessly at his feet, no longer fully his. At last he reached it, the field of Equinox. It was unlike anywhere he had seen. Half the plain blazed in sunlight, though no sun shone above, while the other half lay drowned in darkness, though no night had fallen. At the center stood the gate, a towering arch of obsidian, carved with runes that glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Light and shadow clashed against it, spiraling endlessly as if both longed to tear it open. The shadow bearer was already there. He stood before the gate, arms spread wide, his impossible shadow stretching into both halves of the plain. "You see now," he said, voice echoing unnaturally. "Light and shadow are at war. Only the gate can restore balance." Arin's chest tightened. "By killing? By stealing people's shadows?" The shadow bearer's eyes glinted. "Not stealing. Returning them. Every shadow is a fragment of what was sealed here long ago. To awaken the gate, they must be gathered." Arin shook his head. "No, there has to be another way." But even as he spoke, the stolen shadows began to rise. They swirled around the gate. Hundreds of them. Villagers, travelers, nameless souls, stretching upward like black flames. The runes on the arch blazed brighter. The gate trembled. Arin felt the pull in his own body. His shadow strained violently, trying to rip free to join the others. Pain lanced through him, nearly knocking him to his knees. The shadow bearer extended a hand. "Let it go. You were chosen, boy. Your shadow is the final key." "No!" Arin gasped, clinging to the glowing map. The parchment flared in his hands, brighter than ever before. Golden light shot into the sky, striking the gate. For a moment, the shadow shrieked and recoiled. The balance wavered. Arin understood. The map wasn't just a guide. It was a seal, forged to keep the gate closed. If he gave it everything, his will, his very being, he might bind the shadows again. He looked at the shadow bearer, who now strode toward him, shadow writhing like a storm. "You'll destroy the world," Arin shouted. "No," the man said coldly. "I'll save it." With a final breath, Arin pressed both hands to the map. Light exploded outward, blinding and pure, wrapping the gate, choking the shadows, burning them back into silence. The last thing Arin saw was his own shadow tearing free, not to join the others, but to stand beside him. No longer an enemy, but an ally. Together they sealed the gate. When the light faded, the field was empty. The shadow bearer was gone. The gate stood silent, and Arin, boy and shadow both, had vanished. The villagers would whisper forever of the day shadows walked in daylight, and of the boy who became one to save them.